It's a great pleasure for me to start another LIDE Talks. Today we have two very important people with us. We have the president of the Levvo Group and Duda Kertész. She is the CEO of Johnson & Johnson in the United States. She worked several years here in Brazil. And then we'll have Nadir speaking a little bit about her. But the two women we have here with us are very special to us. And they satisfy our objectives. When we started with LIDE Mulher, what we wanted was to create an opportunity to spend time with women, women who could serve as inspiration to other women as well. We have avoided doing these talks when they focus on their life and how they began on their journeys. Of course, this is important in the beginning of a cycle, but we like to hear women speak in the positions that they occupy. And today, with the pandemic, it's very important for us to see these women in leadership positions and how they are working. Just like we see the heads of government taking action, they are also taking action very successfully. And this is a great inspiration to all of us. This is why we have LIDE Mulher, to bring together women and to show inspiration in the guise of other women in leadership positions. I would like to now explain to you how the LIDE talks work. We'll have 15 minutes each. Each of our guests will have time to make their remarks. They're speaking ad-libbing without any set uh, schedule, but they'll talk about what's going on with their products in the pandemic. And it's interesting to hear them speak naturally, ad-libbing, improvising without highly prepared presentations, but rather just conveying information to us. It's the first time we are bringing to you an executive who lives abroad outside of Brazil, and she has been awarded many times. The fact that we have now a woman leading Johnson is very important. And we must hear her. So that's why I believe this live meeting is going to bring us several important lessons. I think that our president was very fortunate in choosing these women, and we'll now hear Nadir Moreno to preside over this meeting. Thank you very much. Good evening. It's a great pleasure for me to be here and to continue the LIDE Mulher Talks program today with two fantastic business women, executives, entrepreneurs, whatever name you give them. I think that it will apply perfectly to the two women, as Celia has very aptly said. And later we'll talk about other moments in our journey to the Anguillas. But in fact, as you said, Celia, what is important now is to share information about the behaviors and how we are surviving this pandemic, the before and after, and the different aspects that affect industry segments and subsegments. That's why today we'll focus on consumer behavior in different aspects, and they'll be sharing with us a little bit about how they are overcoming this huge challenge, considering all changes that are affecting business and geographies alike. So we'll start with Laura Oliveira. If you don't know her, she was born in Cuiabá. I didn't know you were born in Cuiabá, Laura. I thought you were born in Brasília. She has a degree in business administration from the Federal University of Mato Grosso. She also holds MBAs from several institutions such as Getúlio Vargas Foundation, Fundação Dom Cabral, and Harvard. She was responsible for founding the Levvo Institute and the Levvo Usina, a pioneering investment of the group in a photovoltaic power plant. And she's also a member of the Committee of Operations and Training of the Brazilian Association of Franchisees for McDonald's. So now I'll hand it over to Laura. She will be telling us a little bit about her experiences in this moment. Thank you very much, Nadir, for the invitation. Celia and Duda, we met in 2014 in a very interesting occasion that was organized by LIDE, a group I've been part of for at least 10 years, and I'm very happy to be here. As I said, Nadir has painted the picture very well. I have been working with McDonald's franchise for 20 years, and we have seen a change of sentiment and a change of behaviors when the world was confronted with a pandemic. In March 13, everything changed. I have 13 restaurants among kiosks and points of sales, and 4 of these stores had to be closed down because of the pandemic. So, what are we to do? Since we are McDonald's, we have great support from the company. After all, it's a corporation, a worldwide corporation. They have protocols and guidelines to offer. And let's talk about the alcohol or hand sanitizer. In McDonald's, we've always had this habit of using antibacterial soap and hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizers have been very helpful to us because in a risky situation and a disaster situation as we have now, everybody feels terrified. So everything changes, the way you dress, what you eat, because you just have to close down all the stores and restaurants. And in the middle of the pandemic, what was brought into relief was attention to health and caring for your health. Everybody was locked down, and we went through several unexpected situations. In my company, the first thing we did was care for our people. I have around 500 employees, and I said, I'm not going to lay off anyone. I'll do my very best to care for these people and their families. So I thought to myself, we had a meeting with the strategy group, and we tried to make a few decisions considering the 500 employees. We analyzed who had comorbidities, and since we are working in both the federal district and Goiás, we had to look into the legislation to see what our limits were, what we had to do. And after that, we exercise the utmost care with our employees and with our patrons and also the extended families. We wanted to provide the best possible care for everyone. So in the Levvo group, we followed the guidelines issued by the corporation, following cleaning protocols and also doing everything we could to keep our kitchens and stores clean. So what happened is that everyone that felt comfortable enough to come to work, because a lot of people were also afraid they would lose their jobs or they would fall ill. They thought, okay, I'm feeling fine at home, but what if I lose my job? So we started doing a few presentations. We bought a Zoom package. So it's a new software we started to using for these meetings and online lectures, just like the one we're having now. Before, of course, we had real events at a venue and etc., but this was no longer possible. So now we are analyzing everything on a case by case basis, always respecting the law. So what do we have? We have drive-throughs. The drive-throughs became our hope and a point of support for the communities. This old friend, if you wanted um, French fries or a McDonald's, we had our drive-throughs open. Since we have over 500 drive-through points in Brazil, we were the friend you come to. There were a lot of people that sometimes didn't go to the supermarket or made a large purchase. So what is open? McDonald's and the drive-through. So I think this is something we'll remember for life. This is what I told my employees. What do we have? We have this little window, our drive-through window, and we'll try to do our best, protecting ourselves, taking care of our health, also doing and working with food and preparing meals with the utmost care. So we made several adaptations. Our old friend hand sanitizer became even more important and our protocols more stringent. This changed the way we consume because in the past you would order French fries at the store, but now it was no longer possible. So we had to do the drive-through processes faster and teach our staff only to work on that little window. So we saw an increase of 50% in the revenue from the drive-through, and also delivery. Delivery went up by 150%, even though we suffered losses because our mall stores were closed, but we were trying to make ends meet and balance things off. It was important for us to bring hope to families, caring for people. So in the protected MAC, what we do is we clean the offices. There are a lot of people working from their home office. And one of the things, we know that, for example, the healthcare professionals became heroes for most everybody, but also the cleaners. And many times they were left aside, nobody cared for them. But I would like to make a point here of thanking these people who work in our stores, in companies, in restaurants. They were so important in the pandemic. Many times we fail to observe how important they are. They are just as important as healthcare professionals. And also, let's think of innovation. For example, when a mall was closed, of course, I cannot dismiss these people who work for me. And we talked to people, and we noticed that the community wanted drive-throughs. So we built drive-throughs in the shopping mall parking lots. And this for the greater good, for the good of the community and society. So one of the things consumers are doing now is consider, what does this company do for the greater good? We have just developed a project with hen houses. Why? Because it's important to fight famine. Many NGOs, even when they are supported by the government, they are in a scary situation. Now with the hen houses, it's great. Why? Because you can get fresh eggs, produce, and also chicken. So this is a source of hope for many people. It may sound crazy, but today, 2020, people are worried about the food on their plates. They are in conditions of vulnerability. So we started also buying cleaning supplies to the homeless. Duda probably knows that consumption of paper and tissue is on the rise. Our consumers today are very worried about one thing. I feel safe. Am I eating healthy food without any contamination? So even if the decrees today say, well, you're clear to go to the shopping mall, our behaviors have affected our behavior. It's also pandemic behavior. So it's a lot of work that goes into building up the emotional comfort for you to go back to a shopping mall. And this, of course, requires soft skills, the soft skills of a businesswoman and also of a woman, the abilities only women have. For example, with distance learning, we saw an increase in software buys. Everybody wants faster connections to the internet, better mobile phones with more random access memory so that they can take online courses because they are online, but they want to invest in their self-development. After all, they're afraid they'll lose their jobs, and they are probably supporting their own families. So you may think, well, we're not getting any new orders, all the plants are idle, but this is not the case for everybody. There are some segments that are booming. So with the pandemic and with the new concerns that are emerging, we have to keep our eyes open and consider the human being. I often say, let's look to the minorities, let's look to people, because everyone counts. All humans count, and we have to be attentive to this fact. Something that there is in common between Duda and me is that Levvo was the first GPTW company and Johnson and Johnson as a large corporation. So I I was born and raised in Cuiabá. I always pursued my dreams and I was able to succeed. And what does it have to do with the pandemic? I think that our employees have to reinvent themselves today. They are now working at home, and many times they don't even have an adequate place to speak online to someone. All they have is like a blank wall behind them. It's the only thing they have, just like that drive-through window. They're trying to deliver results for the company so that they don't lose their jobs. And at the same time, you have to help your children, um, help them with their homework, and you have to share this little corner in front of a blank wall with your husband. And you may think, well, what am I going to buy? And we can make a few comparisons. In Brazil, we saw an increase of almost 300 to 400% in software purchases. Also, air conditioning filters, people changing those filters because they were afraid of the virus dissemination. And a lot of people didn't even think about the cleaning of their HVAC systems, but now we have a totally different condition. Cleaning products in general, if you compare to Italy, Canada, and the United States, what do they have in common? People are afraid, so they end up building up supplies at home and stocks, toilet paper, and other goods without an expiration date. So people start building stocks because the consumers are afraid of this scarcity, or maybe they'll need vitamins, but there won't be any on the drugstores. Here I have some data from the Nielsen Institute, New York, that shows that Listerine is being used more often because people are afraid of being sick. And for the first time, except for the Spanish flu 170 years ago, we are now in a new world scenario, but with the support of technology. So Levvo really made a point of caring for people with the support of the McDonald's system behind it. We try to do the best we can for our patrons. And I think that having a purpose now is really going to make a difference. If I go out to the store to buy rice, which one am I going to choose? There are like 15 brands. But then I see, well, this brand is supporting their communities in a project, or that one makes rice and refines rice with sustainable power sources. So it's not only about the cheapest price anymore. There are other values involved. And by the way, I can mention this poetry. New consumers are thinking harder. Less is more. You want to come closer to people. What you value is different. So a good company today cares for their employees. They hire members of minorities, and they do something to give back to the communities. So we have to think about the collective, we have to simplify our lives and be more joyful, because this is what really matters today. So just in closing, I brought you this poem from Carlos Drummond de Andrade from the 1940s. It really speaks to me. And so I'll read it to you. Shoulders support the world. It doesn't matter if old age comes. What is old age? Because your shoulders, they support the world, and they are no heavier than the hands of a child. Wars and famine and fights inside offices just show that people have not become free yet. So what does it mean? We need to be a company that understands that each human being is important. We need to care for people, care for our companies and products. And I am sure that we'll be selling a lot of Big Macs. Just come to our drive-through stores so that we can really care for the planet for future generations. What a great presentation, Laura. It was wonderful. Of course, we know how serious and committed and professional your group is, of course, with you taking the lead. So I would like to also congratulate you and hand it over to Duda Kertész now. Nadir, sorry, just 1 minute before Duda, I just wanted to say that I received a message. Minister Furlan is watching us, and for us, it's a great pleasure for to have his company here, Duda, Laura. Sorry to interrupt you, Nadir, but I thought this was welcome news. It's very pertinent for sure. We have a very illustrious guest today. So, Duda, as I was saying, we have a lot of people watching you. Um, when they heard that you would be here, you're very well known for the brilliant work you do. She has a degree from Getúlio Vargas in business administration. She also has a specialization from the Harvard Business School. She joined JJ in 1993, and under her management, J&J consumption as an area grew by 80%, consolidating its operations in the international markets as one of the most important for the corporation. She was 3 times listed as one of the most influential women in Brazil, and she was also mentioned as one of the top 10 women in the United States. So you have the floor now, Duda. Well, good afternoon, Nadir, Laura, Célia. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak Portuguese, first of all. Well, we have been together on this trip. I also spoke one time for LIDE Mulher in the city of Recife, another time in São Paulo. It's always a great pleasure to be able to spend time with you and to share a little bit about our history, what is going on in the world now. And I hope that this conversation is useful. Laura, it was wonderful to hear about your story and how you guide your company with those principles. We know that catering is one of the most challenged sectors in the pandemic. I am Duda Kertész. I was born Maria Eduarda in Bahia. I have 2 teenagers. They are a lot more work than my own work. If you have children who are teenagers, you agree with me. So I've been working for JJ for over 20 years. I joined in 1993. I held many different positions. I had the privilege of leading Johnson & Johnson consumption Brazil for 5 years. I always say that this was the best job ever, my dream job in my life. I think it was one of the ones that was one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had, because it was a moment of transformation and I was leading a wonderful team. 4 years ago, I moved to United States to raise my kids and to lead one of the consumption units in the US. Well, we had Listerine, part of Johnson's, baby products, band-aids, first aid products. And starting last year, I began working with skin and health, beauty products and baby products for the American market. Just to give you a little backdrop, because of course, everything I say will reflect my experience in the market where I operate. I work with, of course, Neutrogena is my top brand. It's also being marketed in Brazil. It's beautiful. If you haven't tried it, do it. We also have Aveeno, Lubriderm, Johnson's Baby, Neostrata, among several other brands. But essentially, it's skincare and also baby portfolio. In Johnson and Johnson's, we also have a pharma arm and a medical devices area. So with everything that is used in surgery rooms, and I work in consumption. So it's very different scenarios, in fact, if you consider all of our diversity. And each sector was affected in a different way. We are working very hard to develop a vaccine. Maybe you heard about it, but of course, this is not my area of expertise. I am a beauty product and baby product specialist. So let me tell you a little bit about the changes that came with the pandemic. Before we address the market and how it's progressing, I think that, you know, the way we've been personally affected by the pandemic is very violent. It's something striking. Even though we know that the pandemic started in China, I think that everybody was in denial. Nobody could believe it was going to hit us this bad, and I think that this happened both in the US and Brazil. I remember March 13, the day I went to the office, and everybody was so surprised because the office was closing. And from that moment on, what we had to do to deal with our kids, with technology, with the new safety requirements, and also the protection of our employees, that has one of our paramount concerns. Adapting to remote work, how do you adapt to the normal daily demands? Of course, there is a drop in productivity early on because nobody could work in the same way as before in the first weeks. So I think that this is the first transformation. The first transformation is the way we work. It changed overnight. Nobody was used to Zoom or other technologies. Skype was an exception. And we like personal contact, putting our heads together to think. Even in the American market, person-to-person contact was very important. And one of the concerns I saw in the teams and that Johnson shared was how to make things possible for the people who are caregivers. They are caring for someone. Maybe it's someone with a disability, it can be parents or somebody else who needs special care and attention. And maybe all of a sudden your support has been cut off from you. I have many young parents in my team with toddlers and young kids, and all of a sudden they had to help them with homework, homeschooling, and other needs. So it was a huge transformation and very quick too. We had to adapt the way we work. However, I think that there's also good news, as there's a good side in that we realize it is possible to change, and several new opportunities have emerged. For example, I have a part of my team working in Los Angeles, California, and another part in New Jersey. Before we thought, that they're separate things, because the people who live in Los Angeles, they don't want to move to New Jersey, and who can blame them? Sorry. Um, and all of a sudden, we see that there are opportunities, job opportunities in New Jersey, and the people who live in LA may apply. It's no problem. It's important to find the life work balance, and all of this tends to increase stress levels. Well, I have two teenagers, my kids. So in thesis, I am not as stressed as the people with little kids, but at the same time, there's so much stress, and it comes in waves. Michelle Obama said a few days ago that she felt low-grade depression during this period. And my question is, who didn't? Because, okay, all of a sudden you're feeling optimistic, you're intent on making things work, and then the next moment you're feeling, this is too much for me, I cannot even see that washing machine working. And in the United States, we are used to not having any help, but spending the whole day at home and having to, and this blurring of boundaries between what's your work life and your family life. I think this is the first major transformation, and with it comes a lot of great things and things that are challenging for this period. Now let's talk about consumers and how they're coping with the changes, the different impacts. I think that the impacts and changes we see in our market, even thinking all the pressures we're subject to, we see that there is a change in a focus in value, the value of products, and what is essential, what are the essential goods, because we know unemployment is spiking. A lot of people lost their jobs. Some people lost their income. So the top concern is economic stability. Even if you were not laid off, people have this feeling, okay, so far so good, but maybe I'll be the next one to be laid off. And this changes your habits when you go shopping, what you buy, and how you select the brands you choose. And a lot of people are now looking to the brands that, first of all, you trust, because I'm not going to risk anything right now. And secondly, what is the value brand? And the very expensive brands are being dropped right now. For example, if you consider the skincare market, there are some specialty beauty stores such as Sephora and other stores that sell more expensive products that had to close doors, while drugstores and supermarkets remain open. So people now prefer the cheaper products because, everybody's worried about saving money. I think that also this concept of going back to basics, going back to what's essential is something that we see as very important. All the rules are now being questioned. So people ask themselves, what is important for a company? Does this company have a purpose? Is this brand a brand that contributes to the current moment? Do they help or do they aggravate the problem? Are they helping the COVID-19 healthcare workers? You probably saw that in the United States there is a heated debate today on race and social justice, and consumers are putting a lot of pressure on the American companies, and they want the companies that are doing something to turn the tide. And I think that this is, of course, very important. Another remarkable change is in the way we buy, the way we shop. E-commerce is exploding, it's going through the roof, and it's just something to stand in awe of. So what we thought would happen in 5 to 10 years occurred in a matter of months, and whoever was better poised to capture that movement did. And similar to what we saw happening in Brazil, people who shop just for a few products in e-commerce then realize I can buy anything online. So Nadir, I think that you probably feel this. I was looking to the window because the UPS guy has just drove by. He just drove by, and yeah, I was checking whether he brought something. So every day a new box arrives at home. Well, I did a lot of online shopping, but it's just impressive what we see today. Most categories grew by more than 10%, and there are categories that grew 100% online. Another emerging trend that I find very relevant is science. In a world of fake news, where everyone is an influencer and an authority, if you have a voice in the social networks, you can say anything you want. And there's a lot of great things coming out, but at the same time, there are many problems because of inaccurate information. So I think that the pandemic has now elevated the importance of science, healthcare professionals, the distinction between what's serious and what's not. And for Johnson and Johnson's, this is highly positive because all of our products in all of our divisions, even the most simple daily use products we have science behind them, sound science. So we're trying to communicate this idea to our consumers. It's something that we try to reinforce for them. So this is another interesting trend. Science being given credibility again. And what we see here in the United States too is the fact that there was a lot of resistance to telemedicine. Yes, teledoctors. Sorry, I always thought it was terrible to see, expats who forget Portuguese, but it's happening to me. And please correct me if I make any blunders. So telemedicine, as I said, everybody likes the personal touch. You like to be examined by a doctor. Of course, not everything is possible, but all of a sudden, we were confronted with this new scenario. It works for a lot of things. So this means that telemedicine is really progress. and it becomes far more accessible to many people, regardless of where you live and of your economic conditions. But among all changes, well, for example, for our business, we had a plan back in March, not only the 2020 plan that was ready and underway, we also create 3-year plans in the company. So we had a very detailed plan for 2020, 21, and 22. Obviously, we refresh those plans every year because it's not static and things change. But with the pandemic, we quickly had to revise everything that we had planned for the next 3 years. Considering only the categories, we saw some businesses booming, such as liquid soap and moisturizing creams, not glycerin, but all other drugs such as Tylenol and over-the-counter medicines. All of this is really increasing because people are stocking up at home. They're afraid they're not going to find it on the shelves. Baby products, it's going off the shelves as well because people are stocking up, and the hygiene habits have been impacted. But there are some categories such as sunscreen, and it's the high summer here in the United States. And the initial projections said that there would be a decrease of 30% in the category because nobody's going anywhere. All plans have been canceled. Nobody's going to the beach. So what do you do in a case like this? So what we have learned, in my view, is that we have a lot of resilience because we have to deal with new challenges all the time. You have to be flexible and change your plans at the drop of a hat, especially in developed markets where rules don't change that much. This is quite new. And we had to learn how to stay connected with our teams because in the middle of the pandemic, we had teams and consumers, but in the end, we're all people, and Laura said that. It's important not to lose track of what is important, both for the people who work with us on the team and also, uh, makeup was so important. It's not important anymore. So, what is important? How can we talk to people? How can we touch their lives? How can we, I don't know, boost their well-being and comfort and give them some happiness now in a world that has totally changed. So, well, the emotional connections between your team and the consumers and clients, everything is important, and we need to know what is important really. I think this is what's really fundamental at this time. Thank you very much, Duda. I think that both you and Laura, have expressed very well how behaviors changed and the huge increase in consumption, both, especially e-commerce. We saw growth of, you know, going up from 22 to 40%. The increase was 180% in the initial months. So it was a dramatic change, and it was, basically overnight. So my question to start, are companies prepared for this drastic change still in the second half of the year? Do you believe, yes, do you think that these changes will be everlasting? Or how long can you hold on to them? And what would you say is more significant in the change in profile? I think that the change is definitive. I think we're not going to go back For example, the China experience and the explosion, the e-commerce explosion in China. This is the market where e-commerce takes up more than brick and mortar. In fact, it started growing with the SARS crisis and only accelerated after that. So the expectation and my competitors' expectation is that this is a trend that's not going to change. It doesn't mean that traditional retail will disappear, but what I think is that I think that manufacturers were only partially prepared. We've always had a good presence in e-commerce at Johnson's, but now things have picked up. And there are many things in the e-commerce chain that call for improvement. We know that e-commerce is expensive. It's not as easy, for example, for you to ship a Listerine bottle as a Tylenol box. So there's a lot of little problems for us to overcome. We are trying to improve the customer experience in e-commerce. This is essential because this is when they see the benefits of the product, they see the differentiation, they can make comparisons much faster. So we were very good. I think that we have to push for excellence. And I see, it's different in retail. For example, we have Amazon on one side, but there are other important partners and clients that had a good digital presence and others that were not, really making an effort because nobody could predict what would happen. But now they are moving up in digital alternatives, or they are building drive-through and other types of shopping experiences. So I think that the transformation will continue. I think it's fundamental for everyone to understand and to understand that it's worth investing in that space. Okay, I agree with you. Laura, would you like to say anything? It's very simple. It's just a comment to complement. When I said that the drive-through really made a difference, I was referring to the way you buy. When you create a drive-through in a shopping mall, you avoid personal contact, but you continue to sell. Companies cannot close their doors. The first thing I said to my strategic team was, okay, let's forget there is a pandemic. Let's learn how to cope. Since we deal with so many different diseases in Brazil, such as dengue and chikungunya, I said, okay, now all we have to do is protect ourselves, be prudent, but we should not cross our arms. So I believe with Duda, this will not stop. And even more important is the sensitivity we see now in consumers. They will look to the purpose of a company when making their choices. And right now, everyone is very emotional. We're affected by racism, we're affected by minorities and what's new. I think a new consciousness is emerging in the company. It's everything is seen from a bird's eye view. I'm no longer alone because with e-commerce and the global connections, things will be completely different and there's no turning back in my view. I will ask a question. Minister Furlan asked me to ask to you, Duda, but before anything, a comment. I think that you have explained a few things so well, and what we realized was that there were several trends, but they materialized into realities in such a short time. Of course, there was a trend of using technology or the home office. Now everyone is working in home office, whether prepared or not. For example, at our group, we had to rush and get ready in 10 days. We, on March 19, we were all sent home. But just imagine buying laptops, buying equipment, and it was really very rushed. And we are also implementing new tools in the group. So these trends, for example, delivery services, now everything is delivered to your home. Or you say, I probably am a champion because I order so much stuff and have it delivered. And very few times there is a snag. So my question to you is about your market, and then we'll ask the minister's question. You said something I didn't know, new strata. I use this product. So, for example, I'm not using makeup now, but I use new strata because I had to care for my skin. So I started using their creams. What about innovations and new products coming from Johnson's? And let's tie this to the minister's question. With the acceleration of e-commerce, did new competitors appear? New brands, own brands maybe? Well, thank you very much, Minister, for watching us. It's a great honor, so I'll try to answer the best I can. There are many trends that COVID-19 brought to life, and some of them will continue. So we are looking at innovation from the perspective of inclusion. And this, of course, doesn't have to do necessarily with the pandemic, but rather with the discussion on racism. We are trying to be much more inclusive than we are. And we're trying to take into account this concern. People are worried about germs, bacteria, and viruses, even with masks. There's this interesting phenomenon. Some people are getting pimples because of the fact that they wear the mask. So a lot of people are getting, uh, a lot of people saying that the eyes are now at the center of attention. Yes, this is actually, something I'm concerned about. Well, I don't have the scientific data to back this up, Nadir, but we hear a lot of complaints from our consumers, so it makes sense that it's, the masks are giving you pimples. So we are trying to take everything into our innovation processes, especially this idea, this awareness of value so that we can offer this to consumers. And I think that, and about e-commerce and new competitors cropping up. Well, here in the United States, Minister, I think that since e-commerce has a very solid foundation in skincare and beauty, there is a huge amount of brands that only exist because e-commerce was already a mainstay. It was mainstream. So this is what we call the indie brands here. This is the local name. Brands, of course, had to overcome this entry barrier if they wanted to be sold in Walmart or, the drugstore chains such as Carrefour. But with e-commerce, this entry barrier has disappeared. I can create Duda skincare tomorrow. Of course, I don't have the science and technology for that. This is just a simple example, but I can set up a website and create an experience and start selling this product without having to go through the traditional commerce, retail commerces. So e-commerce really brings this wall down and creates direct to consumer selling. And this creates a multiplication of competitors. In fact, it's a phenomenon that we had before and that I think will gain even more speed in the future. Okay, very well. Now I would like to ask Laura a question. I wanted to ask you about your business. It's so interesting. Everything is geared to sustainability and the environment in your projects. So do you think that these issues are more present in the consumer's mind? Do you think that with the pandemic, consumers now prefer products that are associated with projects of this nature? Well, this is what I think. Well, as Duda said, the world has changed and we have this consciousness emerging. A lot of people began thinking of themselves and of other people. So, this collective project that we do, everything that we do today, has to be based on the collective, on the groups. What's important is the seriousness, and this is what's going to make a difference. So if you think about sustainability, especially now that everybody's staying longer at home, reading more news, this is really going to make a difference. Or a company, for example, that gets a GPTW, third place in Latin America, it means that you're really caring for your people. You're acting with sustainability and you're moved by a purpose. So there is this Tom's brand, and whenever you buy shoes from them, you're making a donation in Africa. So it's a company that's simple, but at the same time that has the support of diversity behind it. So inclusion. 6 years ago, I changed the restrooms in my store so that we could also serve the trans community. No, please explain to me. Do you have a special restroom for them, or how does it work? No, no. You can go to McDonald's at Avenida Paulista 1000. There is a sink for everybody, and it's a gender free booth. It doesn't matter, for everybody. It may sound silly, but it's very inclusive, and it helps you respect diversity. So a trans person, which one will they choose? You just put gender free, and like this you don't create any type of discomfort for anyone. We did this 6 years ago in McDonald's Brazil is now changing this. So at the Avenida Paulista we have gender free restrooms with individual booths. This means respecting other people now. As we know, in Brazil there are gay marriages. There's no way of coming back to things. It doesn't matter whether you agree or not. It's not a matter of agreeing, but rather of showing respect. So when you show respect to somebody else, you create a source of attraction for your consumers. Michele Bolsonaro, let's not think of politics. She works with the hearing impaired, and I have found that we have some hearing impaired employees in McDonald's. So that's why I say McDonald's is all about diversity. Michelle Bolsonaro, she does this work and she's in love with her work, because there's a lot of information that comes to us in sounds, but we need to promote inclusion and bring those people to work with us. So sustainability, inclusion, from now on, I believe that these are trends, very strong trends, and more than that, it's something that is going to come into relief because of purpose, the purpose discussion. when Duda was talking about consumption, I have a 6-year-old child, and I have contact also with their buddies, my kids' buddies. A lot of people were scared. Oh, there won't be any diapers anymore. There will be no wipes to buy at the drugstore. So, in a way, everyone is feeling anxious, but also conscious. And I think that the pandemic has also created an opportunity for you to foster participation in programs like this, because in Brazil, unfortunately, we know we know that there is a lot of philanthropy, and here in Brazil we have not reached this level, but the pandemic has brought this opportunity to us. In addition to the rewarding feeling that you provide to your employees, you also have a chance to participate, your friends and your family, and this is very important. Yes, we have, our early horn. He works together with Warren Buffett in the United States, and he is a great philanthropist. But we have to be promoters of philanthropy. We need to inspire a sense of generosity in others. This is what makes a difference. It's just like this example. I'm buying rice at the grocery store. I'll try to choose the one that adds more value and that helps care for people. Well, let me ask something out of curiosity. You work with McDonald's, an affordable product, and you showed us how you reacted quickly to the pandemic by setting up drive-through booths in the parking lot. And I thought it was really amazing when I saw you made a post about it on social networks. You were trying to find a quick solution, something that would also increase revenue. So my question, were you able to find new clients with these initiatives? Because a lot of restaurants, they close doors, and it took them a while to find an alternative, but I saw that you were very quick. And do you think that you have expanded because of that? Yes, I have, yes, a quick response to a critical moment. In our Instagram, we had around 600 followers. Today we have 2,500. So it's an increase by threefold in just a few months. And we only started interacting with our audience uh, at the time because we only did the general communication for all of Brazil in the past, but then we got the green light to do something of our own. So we are distributors of the Golden Arches, and I think that the fact that you have a 24/7 drive-through, you're at home, you just drive to a McDonald's, and so the drive-through became an attraction, became something for you to do, because all you did was, go to the drugstore, go to the grocery store. Of course, it's an obligation, but being able to, I don't know, get an ice cream at the drive-through is something more enjoyable. We also have the family box. I wish I had brought a box for you to see. This is a big box that you take to your family. So we have created the family box where you can, put a lot of products and you can go and have a shared meal with your family. So this means, comfort and a loving feeling that's shared with your clients. And I think that, yes, just judging by the increase in our Instagram account, I think that we have some new clients. Well, unfortunately, our time is almost up. Yes, we have several questions. I'm not sure about the last one. Okay, so the last one, Duda. In fact, we know that the consumers are very afraid. And it's important for consumers to observe how concerned the brands are. We want to go back to normal, to go back to open space, but with safety. So how to address this? How can we handle this now that we are going back to normal? I think this is a very good question. I think that Laura's challenge in this situation is of a greater order than mine, because we don't have stores, we don't have a place where consumers can go to and where we can feel responsible for them. What I think is that stores, supermarkets are open, but you have to be responsible. You have to wash your hands and use hand sanitizer. Those are very important measures while we don't have a more definitive solution. So I'm very proud to be working in a company that dedicates years of efforts and research and money to be one of the companies that will bring the world a vaccine so that we can go back to normal. But until then, I think that the best advice is to be careful. This is a very serious situation. It's not a simple flu. It's taking many more lives than it should. So my advice is just, care for yourselves, care for your family the best you can. Okay, thank you very much. In fact, I always like to reinforce the fact that our individual responsibility and individual awareness is what really going to make a difference in the fight against COVID-19. Because if we all do our share individually, we'll have the collective impact. So I thank both of you. It was so important and so interesting. Both companies, we knew they are great companies, but it's very interesting to see how seriously they are addressing the pandemic and the level of delivery, because we know that now we are challenged as family members and also as professionals, and in spite of all of this, you were able to make the business prosper, considering everyone, the employees, the family, the clients, showing that your brand can be part of the new normal that hasn't arrived yet, but we're on the way. So now I'll hand it over to Celia for the closing, but thank you very much. We thank you for accepting this invitation. We're getting tons of messages thanking both of you and thanking the information that was shared here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Najir. It was truly amazing. I think that, you know, two consumer products, it was a perfect match. And we have many, many, many questions. So, in addition to the questions we received, we also have, um, you know, a lot of curiosity around both McDonald's and Johnson's. So, as I was saying, we have some products that right now we are not using, and others that you're using very intensively because they are very good. Yes, yes. Go ahead and use sunscreen and other face creams. Yes, I'll show you my cream. Just and the same goes to McDonald's. Yes. I just want to interrupt for a second because I told Duda that she looks exactly the same as I saw her 4 years ago. No, she's even more beautiful. Yes. Yes, it's Neutrogena and Neustrata and also a lot of friendship. And once again, I would like to think back to this trip. Sonia has just sent a message to all of you saying that she misses you. She was also one of the participants on this trip. We're talking so much about this, it was a trip, only women. We went to Anguilla and it was very special. So we're trying to have another go at it, and maybe we'll cross paths with Duda again. So thank you so much to all of you. Ligi, thanks you all. As I said, Ligi connects, and we're connecting. We're connecting Duda's brilliant experience, Laura from Brasilia, and it was great to count with you. And we also have, it's great to have you and Men here. So thank you very much. It was very special. So we'll have some Ligi events coming up soon, and our business forum, which is a very important event with all the top business leaders, has been transferred to December, because we believe that by then things will be better and we'll be able to hold a real event at a venue. It's the one we used to have in Bahia, and that you were there with us. And so we will have it at the end of the year. So thank you very much. And thank you. We close now. Thank you. Goodbye to all.